Okay. Well, do you guys want to try to get rolling here?
Let's do this thing.
We feeling confident?
Let's shit this thing out.
Feeling something.
Let's shit this thing. That's about the most appropriate thing any of us have said. All right. Who wants to go first? Let's just figure it out while we're recording. Screw it. Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's Kevin here with Pursuing Pixels, and I'm here tonight with Randall.
Hey, everybody.
And DJ.
Hey.
All right. I guess we're just going to dive right into it today. We're going to talk about some more video games, and DJ is taking another deep dive into the Dark Souls universe.
Deep dive.
Little remastered dive. Little 1080p.
Hey, it was on sale, man. And I love a good sale. But the problem was it was on sale both the PlayStation Store and the eShop. And so I had a real dilemma because on sale for the same price.
Which way to go?
Well, it was really choosing between the portability versus the better graphics and everything. Right. And I ended up going with the PS4.
Okay.
Just because when I play these games, I'm usually on the couch for 5+ hours per session.
just slothing.
Oh yeah,
sure,
yeah,
as you do.
I know no food. It's a great way to lose weight is for me to just put in a Souls game and forget that I'm hungry.
Yep, that makes sense.
Hungry for souls.
And so with that being said, the portability didn't really make sense considering the battery life of the Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is probably more demanding while playing that game. Yeah, you have it on the Switch, right, Randy?
I do. I own it physically on the Switch.
Okay. Not to cut you off, DJ.
No, please do. And I guess number 2 factor for me, I guess I wanted the more different experience than the one I had already had, because I owned it on PlayStation 3, and allegedly the Switch, those graphics are supposed to be kind of most similar to the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360.
I had heard that too. Yeah, I would say from what I've played and compared to just screenshots I've seen, it does seem like it's a bit muddier on Switch to kind of get it running on there.
Right. So I guess I went with the more unique experience. So yeah, I got it. I've about probably over 30 hours in at this point.
Yeah.
And it's only been a week. But no, I'm loving it. And I'm noticing that every playthrough I do a different kind of route. My first playthrough I was a pyromancer. Second playthrough I was a warrior.
All in the first game? You've played the first game this many times?
Yeah, how many times have you beat Dark Souls?
This will be my 3rd time.
Shoot.
Okay. It sounded like you were just going to keep going there. It was like, and then my 4th time I played as the wizard.
No. So being a hunter now, so very, very bow-based, and I'm realizing that, oh man, it's so easy to exploit this game. But yeah, I've obviously loved these games, being able to sink in this many hours, and it's the immersiveness that I find most appealing, I believe. I can, with most games, I have to put on a podcast or something to, keep me entertained.
Right.
But with Dark Souls, I think the atmosphere and just the level of attention you need to give to the game, I don't need any outside factors.
You're right about that. There is something to be said for that. Like, you can't have outside factors in that game, or you will miss a timing in an attack you were supposed to do, or a block, or whatever. Like, it sucks you in. Like, that is, if you're going to succeed, in my experience at Dark Souls, like, you need to be vested in, like, this is what I'm doing for the next however long.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And how many hours, just in comparison, have you put in, Randy?
I think I might also be around 30 hours. Although, you know, by no means am I well versed in it, so a lot of that is like restarting and getting lost, and you know, I think I would guess that I'm maybe halfway through the game.
Okay, and I'm guessing you can probably burn through it a little quicker, DJ. Like, knowing kind of what you're doing. I know you just said you take a different route every time, but
yeah, but I do have a generally good idea of what I need to be doing, and
right.
Though what I'm really looking forward to on this playthrough that I've not experienced yet is the DLC from the first game, which was just automatically included in Remastered.
Nice.
I think it's Artorias of the Abyss. Someone's gonna yell at me for getting that wrong. But yeah, because I've gotten the DLC of any Soulsborne game before except that, so this will be like my last piece of that puzzle.
That's kind of awesome, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, I just love being so focused in a game that I almost forget the outside world. That's almost a little pessimistic.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm looking for.
I'm hiding from the world.
That's what I'm looking for a lot of times when I'm looking to play a video game. So
yeah. Well,
so obviously Dark Souls has a reputation for being like extremely difficult, like a benchmark of difficulty. But like, since you've played so much of the series, almost all of it at this point, like, would you say you still find playing through Dark Souls difficult?
Yes. But maybe not for good reasons. There's a lot of bullshit in this game, especially when it requires you to use some platforming skills.
Oh,
this was not
platform. Like, can you jump in that game?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Kind of.
You can take a nice running jump.
Which I didn't figure out for like 20 hours, by the way. I didn't know that was a possibility.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think that was as much of an issue in the later Soulsborne games, though. So
that's good to know.
You know, it'd be hard for me to say that, like, this is the one you should play, which I think is the general consensus, is that Dark Souls 1 is the best.
Yeah, that's kind of what
truest.
I felt. That's what I'd seen, and that's why I jumped into this one.
Yeah, I personally really like Dark Souls 3.
Okay.
You know, I feel like, you know, while it's more linear, and that's maybe not up everyone's alley, like, you know, it's less exploratory than Dark Souls 1, where, you know, there's so many paths you can take right at the beginning.
I might
not
like
right
that more.
At the beginning,
you saying
that's why you're already speaking more my language, because I'm someone who hasn't had a huge interest. I played like just that first little like bridge area of the very first Dark Souls game, and I don't know. It feels really clunky and slow and deliberate, but not in a good way. To me. Just from the little bit I played, and maybe it was the character that I selected or whatever the set of circumstances, but like I haven't been someone who's been super compelled by the series. But Bloodborne, I've started just a tiny bit, and then other than Bloodborne, I've played a little Jesus, can't even think straight. Tried moving a little closer to the microphone, but Dark Souls 3 like looked a little more fluid to me. In the way that your character moves, and the way I don't know, it just looked a little smoother. It looked more appealing to me for whatever reason.
It definitely looks a lot better. Like, I'd say within the past year, I've played all of those games.
Oh wow!
Like, and going on my not this playthrough of Dark Souls 1, but one I did about a year ago. You know, it was shortly after playing Dark Souls 3, and just the graphics difference was just disgusting.
And Bloodborne's supposed to be more kind of action oriented too, in my understanding, right? I haven't played it, but
yeah, it's there's no shield.
yeah.
And so what they encourage is, if you've been attacked, there's a small window of time where you can regain some of your lost health by attacking the enemy.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like that risk reward, or not necessarily risk reward, but like
a parry system, kind of, sort of
a delayed, like a delayed parry or something.
Yeah,
but they also kind of have like the tiny bit I played. You kind of use like at least the character that I had selected, or the weapons I selected, or whatever. You got like more of like a melee weapon. I had like kind of like a whip cane thing that could like morph. Each weapon could like do two separate things or something, which took me forever to figure out. It was like the most obtuse beginning to a game I've ever played. God, I gotta stop hyperbolizing so much. But it really, I was just like, it took me 30 to 40 minutes to even like figure out how to enter the game itself out of like the main hub. And at that point I was just like, okay, I got to the first little like bonfire or the equivalent of that in the game, and like, okay, I'm done. Not for good, but for now. But you also have a gun, like this character had like a shotgun that was also kind of used like a parry mechanic, just like, if you time it perfectly, you can kind of knock the enemy back or interrupt their attack or something.
Okay.
So you have like defensive strategies, but yeah, the fast and fluid gameplay appealed to me a lot more than it did in the Dark Souls games, from what I had seen.
Nice.
And if I'm recalling correctly, Bloodborne is fairly linear as well.
Nice.
So,
Okay.
if I'm gonna give you a recommendation,
Start there.
Yeah.
For my taste, at least.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you could do Dark Souls 3 as well, because, while, there is a huge fan base regarding the lore of that universe, it's not essential. And so
that's not why I would play it at
exactly.
all.
Right.
I'm with you that I'd want to be in that environment and kind of sucked into the vibe, but I don't really need to. I'm not going to read all the item. I always hear like, oh, it tells an amazing story through item descriptions, and like I just don't read those really. I mean, maybe once in a while, but like if it's a game like that where there's just thousands of items, I'm not going to read all the descriptions.
That's what wore me out on Metroid Prime back in the day.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I don't want to scan everything.
Yep.
But that was more when I was trying to be a completionist with every game I played too. So I've kicked that a little bit.
Same. So DJ, let me ask you, as someone that dropped off of Dark Souls, so Blighttown really wore the crap out of me. It just wore me down. It whittled me down to nothing, unfortunately. And I just didn't have any more will to continue playing after I had kind of seen that section of the game through. Would you say that I should keep playing and complete Dark Souls?
Oh, God. Is that where you're at?
Yeah, I'm just after Blighttown. I think I ended up at some temple with a bunch of like raptor-looking knight dudes.
Okay.
Is this like is this like a brick wall for a lot of people in the game, or
it's a pretty oppressive part of the game.
Yeah.
And
a lot of
also
poison.
a lot of poison. One that I just find aesthetically not very appealing.
Agreed.
Okay. Is it all like green and brown or something?
Yeah,
or
a lot of brown.
Yeah. Oh, lots of brown.
Okay. That's one of the things. Yeah, Dark Souls in general looks like a really brown game to me. Like, it doesn't appeal to me. Although I have seen a few, like I've watched DJ play a tiny bit here and there, and like I do remember seeing some weird like creatures and demons and some cooler things than like on initial glance, where I was just like, this is just kind of a drab, bleak world. I don't want to be here.
Right.
Well, how much do you like a challenge, Randall?
I do, and like, I already own this game physically, so like that part of me wants to see it through just because. And it's such an important game, you know, that everybody references, that I feel that somewhat that obligation to see it through that way. But boy, I fell off hard after that, and that's after playing like 30 hours. So like part of me feels guilty for dropping it, but it just, like I said, it wore me down with Blighttown.
Well, and I don't think that's anything to, be ashamed of. Like,
Yeah.
You should. I don't think anyone should feel like, oh, since this is an important game, I have to finish it. It's like,
Right.
well, I should spend my gaming time playing games that I enjoy.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not enjoying something, what's the point?
Yeah.
What
That's
value
fair.
are you getting just out of saying I played this important game?
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where the same angle I'm coming at with not being a completionist. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm not having fun collecting everything there is to collect in the game, then why am I collecting everything there is to collect?
Right.
So,
It, it's gonna get a lot worse for you if you keep going in this. So I guess my personal taste is, if you do want to play one of these games, I do either Dark Souls 3 or Bloodborne. I think those are still very challenging, but they feel more fair
Yeah.
and more like you can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's
Okay.
really worthwhile feedback for me, because, like, yeah,
Same.
I think I will check those out. I actually own Bloodborne already, so
me too. So we could follow
Yeah.
up on this in the future.
totally. Thank you for letting me off the hook, DJ. I appreciate it.
and
But
for
if you
what
stop playing Bloodborne, you're a bad gamer.
Noted.
you're just not a gamer.
Oh, okay. That sounds good.
And for what it's worth, if anybody has had PlayStation Plus in recent-ish months, I think within the past like 6 months or so, it was a free PlayStation Plus game.
Yeah.
So if you happen to add that to your library, and I'm gonna also, based on what DJ was saying, yeah, I'm thinking about diving into that.
You got a lot of games in your queue there, son.
I know.
What have you been playing?
What have I been playing? I've been this week. I dumped a lot of time into Moonlighter,
Ooh.
which is another roguelike game, which seems to be what I like to sink my time into. I really like. I was talking to DJ about this a little bit earlier, but I kind of like just getting into like that. It becomes like part of your like lifestyle almost. It's just like when I have free time, I just play Moonlighter.
Yep.
It's like that no-brainer. It's almost like when you're binging a TV show or something, and you're just kind of like, I'm gonna come home from work and I'm gonna relax and I'm gonna watch this or do this. So that's kind of what it became for me this week. Even though it is a challenging game, but I don't know. Sometimes you get in like that zen-like state of like, although it doesn't quite have a flow-like state like some of the like a bullet hell shooter where you can just kind of you just get in the zone. It doesn't
Right.
quite feel like that for me. But it has a really nice kind of 2-layered mechanic. I'm actually even beyond that, but like 2 main mechanics where it's a dungeon crawler, kind of not too dissimilar of like if you just combine even though I hate just using other games to describe another game, but if you combine like the Binding of Isaac and the Legend of Zelda, you would basically have one half of the game where you're kind of crawling through a roguelike dungeon, only with 3 floors on each dungeon, at least from the ones I've played so far.
Huh.
And I've put about 12 hours into the game so far, so there's definitely some meat on the bones. But you're going into the dungeon. You can carry up to 20 items in your pack. The first 5 items are like on your actual person. So if you do die while you're in the dungeon, you lose everything that's in your pack, but you keep those 5 items that are on your like top grid.
Right.
And it's just like a 5x4 grid that you're dropping the items into. And then those items that you'll pick up along the way will sometimes have like another like layer that's almost adds like a puzzle element to this, to where like it'll say when you place this item in your pack, it'll destroy 1 item to the left. Or when you place this item in your pack, it'll duplicate itself and become the item to the left.
Whoa.
Or different like mechanics like that. It's not I don't want to say it's not crucial. It's definitely prominent, but it's not like you could probably get away with just kind of like not paying too much attention to that. If you're diving deep enough into the dungeons, you're typically getting more than 20 items. So you would just lose out on some potential money, but then you're to get to that money, you're looting stuff, and you can take it back to town. And you have a shop in town that's called the Moonlighter. That's the name of the game, and you're just running the shop, and you have to juggle like the supply and demand and the prices of items, and lock in like, okay, this is the fair price. This is the each customer will give you feedback of like, oh, you're ripping me off, or they just won't buy it, or they'll kind of make like a sad face, or they'll be like thrilled if you get it, if you underprice it you're like, oh shit, I could have made way more money on that. So there's like a nice not risk reward, I keep using that terminology, but a nice like balance between those systems there. And then on top of that, so you also have to save specific items to craft new weapons, craft new or you can like enchant your weapons or craft potions, or and then that also costs money as well. So you really have to kind of juggle the interplay of like collecting the items you need to craft things, but also collecting the valuable items that you need to sell to be able to pay to craft the things.
Wow.
And to upgrade your shop. You can upgrade your beds so that you have extra health in the morning, or an extra shield in the morning when you wake up. And you can, if you go into the dungeons during the daytime, you can only open your shop during the day. But if you go into the dungeons during the daytime, they're a little bit easier. So sometimes I'll go and like just try to loot day and night, and then have plenty of items. I've just gotten to the point where I upgraded my shop. I now have an employee working in my shop, so they'll run the shop for me during the day, and they take 30% of the profits. And like thieves will come into the shop, you have to chase them off, and like it gets pretty hectic, even when you got to keep throughout the day, like people are coming in and out, you have to actually be at the register to sell them the stuff. But then you have to place things on the shelves to like replenish the stock so that you're not missing out on time. And you can open and close the shop. Maybe it doesn't need to be that hectic, but I was trying to like min-max the system.
Right.
And just like, I need to make as much money as I can today, sell as much shit as I can. But yeah, I just like am really sucked into the pixel art is really fantastic. It's like kind of that
beautiful.
It's like that hybrid of like kind of right between 8 and 16-bit. It's like way more detailed than 8-bit, but it's not quite 16-bit. It has like a chunkier look to it in a way.
Right.
Yeah, but I just like the music's really cool. It is, like DJ was saying, it when I get sucked into some of these roguelikes, I do like to kind of put on a podcast, and like I said, it just becomes that like, I'm just gonna unwind and do this for the night, for the rest of the night. So I do that as well after I get used to like the dungeons music. Each dungeon kind of has its own theme and vibe. So but once I'm used to that vibe, I just kind of throw on a podcast and keep playing. But yeah, I've really been loving this game. I had my eye on it like since it was announced. It just looked awesome from a visual standpoint, and it doesn't quite hold up to the visuals are one of the highlights of the game for sure, but it really brings a lot more depth to the kind of almost combines like a Stardew Valley vibe in the second like shop version of the game. Not so much that you're farming obviously, but just like in the managing like how you like the goods you have and whatnot.
That gameplay loop sounds really cool. Just the idea of that. So you're improving yourself and like you're leveling up your equipment and stuff. Is that just for the purpose of now going out to like a harder dungeon to get better items to come back to your shop and sell or whatever else?
Yeah, and it is pretty like layered in the sense of like, okay, so you pick like the sword that you kind of want, and there are a bunch of different weapons. I haven't used too many, but you can also craft like a larger sword, and then there's all different like upgrades using different materials that you find that give it different upgrade paths. Essentially, nothing crazy, but just like this one will give you more speed, but not quite as powerful. This one's more powerful, but it'll slow you down a little bit. That kind of stuff.
Right.
But once you kind of pick those paths, you can like add those items to your wish list, and yeah, they are kind of all just tied to like, okay, once I'm in the second dungeon, I can get these items that will then allow me to upgrade my sword to the next level.
Okay.
And then when I get to the third dungeon, now I can unlock the next, once you have enough money and everything. But yeah, it is kind of tied to that a little bit. Like I do feel like you really can just keep chunking away at it and you'll eventually become powerful enough. But it does not get easy. Like the bosses are tough. The enemies are pretty relentless. It's not an easy game by any means. It does, when you start the game, it starts on hard mode. And it says like right next to it, it says like, this is the recommended way to play, or this is the proper way to play.
Anytime a game offers multiple difficulties, I want them to say that.
I agree.
Yeah.
100. I thought you were gonna say that you want it, that you would play hard every time there's multiple
I thought he said
difficulties.
too.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, knowing DJ, yeah. But yeah, I agree with that 100%. Just say this is the way we designed the game and intended it to be played. If you want more of a challenge, pick this. If you want to just kind of go through the story beats, pick this.
Right.
I agree 100%. Just like you should be able to remap the buttons, which thankfully in Moonlighter you can remap every button in the game. So I was able to get a nice, comfortable controller layout as well. I was appreciative because I need to have my dodge roll button on the correct trigger there. It just feels right.
Playing on Switch, you said?
Yeah, I am playing on Switch. It does every here and there when you're in the town, it'll chug a little bit, but nothing that ever detrimented. One time I did have the game kind of slow down to a halt, but all I had to do was like go back to the menu, reboot it, and start it back up. It wasn't like it was like as soon as I entered a dungeon and nothing was lost or anything like that. So I haven't had any really technical issues or anything like that.
Yeah. Nice.
But yeah, I think it's available at many other, like Xbox, PS4. I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's on Steam.
Yeah.
Definitely available elsewhere. I think it came to the party on the Switch a little bit late. So
I want to play that game. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I highly recommend.
Well, the Switch game that I was playing is Golf Story. So that came out about a year-ish ago. Just a 2-person team that made it, Sidebar Games. It's still only on Switch, I believe, which is kind of interesting.
Weird, yeah.
Yeah, for it having come out almost 2 years ago, I think, at this point. But it did very well on Switch. It was like, it kind of came out at a time when there wasn't a lot else out there. So I think they did pretty well for themselves, especially.
Yeah, it was an early title.
It was early, and like Mario Golf still had kind of a cult following. The RPG Mario Golf games that were like on Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, people love those.
They love them, and then Nintendo stopped making the story and RPG based elements in those games. They went just kind of pure arcadey and versus, which is fine, but Golf Story came through and filled that niche.
What were you saying, DJ?
Said I have no experience with any of those games. I don't know how one integrates RPG with golf.
Yeah, it works better than you think it would, actually.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I've not played any of those either. I'm a roughly, or minimally familiar, but if you wouldn't mind talking a tad about those, if there's a strong enough comparison between the two.
Yeah, it's mostly about being able to upgrade your clubs over time, and just kind of adding a storyline progression to a sports-based backdrop, and just having that overall storyline and a somewhat linear progression path of going through. You're going to play this course, you're going to beat this person to unlock this thing, to get these clubs, to do better on this course where, it's a 500-yard type of hole that you have to complete, but your clubs suck to start, so you're not going to get the best scores, yada, yada. It's that type of idea as far as golf. So,
okay.
Any kind of branching paths, or is it like if you're playing this game you're pretty much going down this specific path?
In Golf Story, it lets you do a bit of both. There's definitely a main pathway, but at any given point in the menu, you can kind of look at 4 different things you can do, and most of those are kind of side quest or like mini game based things that you can go, because you've talked to some like groundskeeper or something, and he wants you to, like, he made this hole on the course that's not actually a legal hole. It's just something like he did in his spare time that he wants you to try out, and it's some crazy shot that you have to make across a water bank, and it hits some turtle shell and ends up on some small island. But there's a lot of that sort of thing that's not the main pathway of little things you can do to up your experience. There is an experience meter where you're leveling your character up, and that allows you to either have more power behind your shot or more control of your shots, things like that over time. So I've been enjoying it. I've always been kind of a sucker for these type of golf games, though, generally, and a lot of sports games generally as well. So it also includes like mini golf, mini games, disc golf, lawn bowling. There's actually like an embedded NES golf they called Galf. GALF that you can play, like, and it's a full out like NES golf game just like emulated in there, which is pretty cool. But it's a really like laid back feel, which I don't know, I find myself coming back to partially for that reason. It's just the music's very low key, just kind of bass and horns. The game's kind of quirky. There's a lot of talking, which I know Kevin's not the biggest fan of.
God, I was just going to chime in and say, yeah, the music's great, but yeah, don't even get me started on those dialogue boxes.
I want to get you started on it.
It's a little tedious. It's like, you got to click through it all, and not only is it tedious, but it also, I've obviously played this game a little bit as well. Actually quite a bit. But it's been a while. But I do think the text boxes don't really fit stylistically with like the graphics of the game. I know that's like a nitpicky thing to say, but like, kind of takes me. One of the reasons this game caught my eye is because it looks cool. It has that just 16-bit RPG, Super
really
Nintendo
clean
era style.
Yep.
Almost like a Pokemon ish vibe to it.
That's a good comparison.
It definitely, and it just like everything that Randall said, like it's quirky and the music, and it just looks, it oozes charm.
Yes,
and it doesn't not give that, but it kind of over gives it, I guess. It's like a little bit, it's like trying a little too hard to be witty and clever, and it's just like, it's just a little more than anything, just a little long-winded. I can forgive a joke that falls a little flat or just doesn't land for me, but it just goes on and on and on. And I did eventually kind of wean off playing the game, which is a little bit of a bummer because you do have to play through the main story game to unlock the courses to just be able to kind of play in like a free play mode, or multiplayer. It does have up to 2 players.
Yep.
And I brought my Switch home for Christmas one year. Me and my brother played a bunch, and we used to play like Mario Golf together all the time on multiple systems. So we had a really, really good time. And he's really into golf, like truly, and is like plays relatively seriously.
Yeah.
And he was like really digging the mechanics of the game. He's like, man, you can really get that slice like just right, or like he felt like he had like great control.
That's good.
I just remember him like commenting on that over and over again. You can really kind of fine tune your shot, even though the way to do it, like the controls and the menus and whatnot for that, are a little clunky and a little. They didn't do a great job of like tutorializing that. I didn't think I had to kind of just poke around at the buttons on the controller and see what did what. Like, is there a faster way to like switch clubs, or even some of like the menus for selecting your upgrade path or your clubs and stuff seem like they were just like, oh wait, I selected that. Oh shit, like just seemed like it's a little clunky. I ran into a lot of like weird glitches and like just weird things happening in this game. It's definitely a little rough around the edges.
Yeah, especially when it first launched, there was a lot of glitches. I think they've patched a lot of that stuff out from what I was reading, and in just my experience lately, picking it back up, I didn't encounter a lot of those glitches that I had before. But still, yeah, the control scheme clunkiness, like after a while, I just kind of absorbed what those controls were, and it was fine.
Same here, yeah.
But it is weird, like you're selecting different clubs by pressing up and down on the analog stick, but then right and left on the analog stick kind of moves where you're aiming, and it's easy enough to just accidentally push in a diagonal-ish direction and do what you didn't want to do there.
Especially with
that happens.
Yeah, especially with the Joy-Cons having that like real tight circumference.
Yep.
You can like really easily push in the wrong direction.
Yep.
I know I had a hard time like playing Celeste. I was like, I had to pull out the Pro controller because like I'm not hitting those diagonal dashes the way that I need to,
Oh yes.
So I know that can be a little finicky.
Yeah, and you are right that the game thinks it's a little bit more clever than it actually is, and it's pretty self-indulgent with its chattiness. I still am seeing those sections now, and I'm like, oof, come on, let's move this along. I get it. Come on, let's go.
I figured, in the beginning, like, okay, the coach is going to be a little long-winded.
Right.
He'll teach me the ropes of the game, but not only does he never shut up, but he doesn't teach you shit. I don't know how to golf. I gotta know how to golf.
He just kind of talks shit, and then sometimes you do the right thing.
Yeah, he's a fucking hack too. You have to play some holes with him, and he's like, all right, we'll be a team. He's like, we'll trade off shots, and he always takes the first shot and just shanks it into a bunker or like shanks it into the deep rough. It's like, dude, get out of here, coach. Screwing me over. But I do like some of, like you were saying, some of the weird like mini game challenges, like that involve him, like something like that. That's a little more like playing an actual hole,
right?
But some of them are like you said, like, well, bounce it off the turtle shell or hit all these into like these specific like like kind of like outlined grids or whatever on in the water. Like you have to land it right in the grid there, or
right,
not
or
in the grid, but in the
the
outline circle.
Avoid the birds, and they got this dotted line radius of make sure you're not in their zone, or they'll pick up the ball and probably put it in a sand bunker.
Yeah.
Then, so that stuff's kind of cool, actually.
I was just gonna say, I like that they incorporate some of that into the actual courses,
yes.
like the birds, like you were just talking about. Although I do wish it had the option, like in Mario Tennis, for example, how you can like turn off the court hazards. I wish you could like pick either or, at least on like the free play mode,
Agreed.
Again, this is just like me backseat game designing, but that would be just like just a preference, because I do like to sometimes play like the true, just without the craziness.
Right.
Sometimes I want to play like, just let me see how I could do if this was a real golf course.
Right.
Not that it's trying to emulate real golf in any like actual capacity. But yeah, again, according to my brother, it's got some pretty legit feel. So.
It does. Yeah, the feel on it's not bad. And yeah, once I got used to all the crazy ways where I could, let me change this precision control thing where I'm hitting the bottom of the ball so that it does a little backspin. It doesn't roll forward as much because the green's really small. Like you can get into that level of nitty gritty pretty easily once you do understand the control scheme. And I tend to do that on every shot now. I'd say I'm about halfway through the game, and I will see it through despite our gripes. I do still really like this game.
And for what it's worth, I would like to see it through as well. It's been a long time for me, so I'm glad you kind of brought it up and went back to that this week, because I would like to, or that'll rekindle my interest in kicking that back up. But yeah, it's hard to go back to, because it's like you want to be as familiar as you were when I was playing it last,
Right.
And it's not going to happen, at least not at first.
Not at first, and the whole RPG element makes it a little tougher to jump into as well. Although I did manage to do it. There are things in there that, it shows you a picture of the character you need to go talk to. So it's not that awful to pick up and play again after a while.
Okay.
But I'd recommend it. Yeah, I'm going to see it through.
Okay, good to know. I will dip back into that, and maybe we can follow up on that if we end up getting any further in that in the future.
Totally.
All right. Well, I guess real quick, even though DJ said he might not have anything to add, and neither do I, but DJ did finish up Octahedron this week, and which I gushed about for a good 10 minutes last week. DJ felt a little mediocre at the time. I know you were on like World 2 or 3 last time.
Yep.
Okay, and anything change on that front? Any new thoughts, or still feeling about the same, lukewarm?
I mean, I definitely enjoyed the increase in difficulty. It seemed to scale pretty well throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess very opposite of the feeling I had with Dark Souls. Like I was very not immersed in the level, and I don't know if it's because maybe I'm being like overstimulated and I'm just aware of like so many things, like this bumping music, these bright lights, and
it's a little chaotic. I do agree with you on that. I will concede.
I would feel that not even after completing a world, but after just completing a few levels, I would feel drained.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I had a couple days that I played a few like longer runs of like, I plowed through like a world and a half or something, or like a full world. But I did get to the point after a while of like, okay, I'm played like 3 levels. Okay, I'll play later or tomorrow,
Interesting.
So.
But I do think the levels are well designed in how they, make you approach them, like adding unique gimmicks to each world, and making you find out how to maneuver best through it. But
not quite
sorry.
on the same level as me of just wholehearted love and adoration.
I like it, but that's about as far as I go.
Okay, that's fair. Well, how about you, Randall? Anything else you've been dabbling in at all, or is pretty much just Golf Story? Or
no, I played a bit of so relatively recently, maybe a few months ago, but because it was just recently on sale, I picked up Outrun on Switch. It's a Sega. I think they call it a Sega Ages still.
Yeah, it's part of that series, yeah.
Yeah, which it kind of trips me up because they've been calling it Sega Ages since like Sega Saturn, which is kind of wild.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, because there was like Sega Ages collection releases on Sega Saturn. Actually, a lot of them in Japan.
Yeah.
I think just one here in the U.S. But this is for Outrun, which is, the old school Outrun that came out in like 1988. Very
arcade, like an arcade racing game, right?
Very much straightforward. In this case, single player, I believe, racing game where you're just trying to basically beat your best time, see how far you can get, hitting those checkpoints like all those old school arcade racers, like Daytona or otherwise. If you don't hit that checkpoint, you've run out of time and effectively gas and your game ends there. So every, 30, 45 seconds, you're like holding your breath, trying to see if you're going to get across that next checkpoint so you can extend another, 40 seconds or whatever to continue on. And it's very like 2D graphics, very just straightforward gameplay. Music's nice, but I enjoy it. And M2 is the one that does the conversions of these type of games, these Sega Ages games, and they do a phenomenal job on these releases. They did like Phantasy Star, and they've done some other ones. I think they did Sonic the Hedgehog on Switch as well.
Yep.
And they make the game run perfectly, and a lot of times they'll just do that extra effort to add another mode or customization on the game. They basically offer up anything they possibly think you could want to do to experience this game as best as you can. Nice. Even though it's from like 20, 30 years ago. So it's like, I think I grabbed it for, $5, something around there. And it's well worth that. Even though I've heard people say that this version is a little bit harder. And I feel like that might be the case because I can only get to about the second or third checkpoint most of the time. It's very easy to crash off the side.
Okay. So do you know at all, and maybe you don't, but is it like endless? Do you just keep going, or are there actual races that you win?
Good question.
Move on to a new track, it's one of those like you're like racing into the horizon essentially, yes. Right? Like you're not so it's like behind you, almost like pseudo 3D.
As you get to so you hit your checkpoint, and then there'll be a fork in the road that comes up, and you can go generally left or right. And there's like a series of forks essentially in this course, so you could end up playing a different way multiple times through this, where you decide to go right, or if you go right, left, it's going to be a totally different looking track as you go along, if you can actually make it that far.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that game definitely caught my eye, probably just because the little like thumbnail cover art thing. It just like looked kind of, I don't know, just caught my eye. The bright blue and the red, just I don't know, caught my eye on the eShop. And I think I might have seen it on sale recently.
It's a pretty game. They did a really nice job with it, and I'd recommend it just as a turn your brain off, pick up and play type of experience. But I'm such a sucker for those type of games anyway.
Me too, though. I mean, it's a little bit different. But I feel like these roguelike games are just like more like taking that concept and adding a layer or two of depth in some way. Mm-hmm. Where you're unlocking and getting more powerful and progressing.
Right.
But I really do feel like roguelike games are what is considered a roguelike game, at least, anyways. I feel like they really are taking like what made arcade games compelling,
and
somehow figuring out a way to get that same feeling without having to pump quarters into the machine.
Right. They're,
Like,
they're often
you know?
taking that like twitchy pick up and play and adding a layer of progression to it. And that's, you know, a lot of times that's enough to just kind of keep you going.
Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoy that about them. Because, yeah, they have that arcadey feel, but I'm not just playing purely for the mechanics. I'm getting something back.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I don't know.
Something
I
to
don't know
move
if
you
that
forward.
makes any sense.
No, it does.
Yeah.
It does to me.
Okay.
I always feel more satisfied when I beat a roguelike, just because I don't like feeling like I just beat this game because I memorized the entire thing. Like,
That's
Silver
fair.
Surfer.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I want to feel like I understand how the game works well enough so that I can apply them in whatever scenario they throw at me.
Right.
Yeah. It is, yeah, it's about mastering the mechanics, and we don't have to pardon me, Jesus. We don't have to talk about this too much, but I know DJ actually finished Flinthook
Oh.
recently, which is another roguelike which has just silky butter. Have you played this, Randy?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I put a few hours into it.
Okay, because this is like some of the butteriest movement mechanics that I've ever played in a game.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the animation and this music.
Yeah.
Everything about this game is awesome, I think. I mean, it's not top tier, you know, I wouldn't put it on the top of like the mountain of roguelikes or anything, but it really just, that grappling hook mechanic of just like flying and zipping all over the level just feels so smooth, and like you really feel like, I don't know, a lot of games obviously give you like the 8 directional shooting and whatnot. This game really gives you like a full 360 degree, 360 degrees of control, both with the grappling hook and with your firearms,
Right.
which is really great. I really like how this game feels, but DJ actually finished it, which it is hard. I'm on the 3rd level and just haven't even considered finishing it. So
Yeah, I think it's just how many levels they make you beat in a row in order to beat the game.
Yeah.
Because, so, like, first boss, you have to go through, like 3 ships?
3 ships.
before.
Each ship is like a level, essentially. They're
Yeah.
like little mini Metroidvania-esque. Not Metroidvania. I'm going to stop using that term. But, like, they're like little mini 2D platforming, dungeons, essentially.
Right.
But then, like, the next boss, you gotta do 5 of the ships before you get to him. Then,
Which get progressively more difficult. Like the ships get tougher and more numerous.
then it's
And then the third.
7 for the third.
Oof.
But then
No wonder
for
I stopped.
the
Oof.
final run of the game, which is the 4th, you gotta do 3 levels, then the first boss, then 3 more levels, then the second boss, then 3 more levels, then the third boss, and then you have to face the final boss, which has 3 different forms.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my god. Spoiler alert. You're never going to beat this game. But it's I don't mean that to be like a total slam. Like if I really wanted to, well, I guess you can beat the game. Obviously DJ did it, but like it does have a lot of cool, like, I wish it had a little more versatility with it, but you have like a set number of like points you can spend. Like once you unlock a bunch of different perks, you kind of can spend, what do you get, like 15 or 20 like perk points that you can spend. Like some of that will give you extra HP,
Right,
or some
health
that'll give you
points,
like a shield, or some that'll give you a double jump, or there's just different like perks that you can pick. And I think however many points, like each perk is assigned a certain number of points that it utilizes to use.
My biggest gripe is the amount of duplicates.
Yeah,
Mm.
that you
You
just
get-
kind of stack, like they're meant to like just be stacked, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd rather, once you get one, you only get that one, and you'll never see it again.
Yeah.
'Cause
Although you can use multiples of
Yes.
that one, and I think there are a set number of how many of those there are. I think. Like if there's like the HP bonuses, like there's only so many of those, because you do have to spend to unlock some of them, right? It's been a little bit since I played. Some of them you find, some of them you have to
Yes.
pay to unlock.
Yes,
I think.
Sounds right.
but either way, it has like I don't know. It has a nice secondary layer. It's nothing quite in the same depth that Moonlighter has, where there's like these like second and third and even fourth layers on top of the different elements of the game. But yeah, it just feels. I don't know. I love the feeling of this game. It's been a minute, but I kind of want to dive back into that now too.
I know.
It just
me too.
You just zip around that little and like that little pirate. I think he's a pirate. That's what they call him.
Yeah.
I forget his name. His name's Flinthook, I think.
Yeah.
That's the character's name.
It's really unique gameplay. There's not a lot of games like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the better, and for that matter, like very many of these roguelikes, like Moonlighter, and the game I compared it to Binding of Isaac and Enter the Gungeon and so on and so on. Like very many of them are that top-down,
right?
Room to room, nuclear throne. Same vibe, they all have that like kind of top down with different takes on the mechanics and the combat and whatnot. But it's nice to play something that has a 2D vibe, that's a little more
perspective. Yeah,
that's got a little more going on than as much as I love Downwell, like that's like really simple and kind of just like here's the core concept and that's all there is to this game. And well, whatever. I'm underselling Downwell big time there, but like Flinthook, because I like Downwell more than Flinthook, but Flinthook just has like I don't know. I got sucked in. I got sucked into the world. It's very like comic booky 90s kind of
very
vibe.
Vibrant.
Yeah, almost like Bucky O'Hare.
Yeah.
Kind of vibe to it. I really got that feeling, like the gross like green colors.
Yeah,
and,
that's a really interesting comparison as far as the palette of that game. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, really cool, really great soundtrack, like worth looking up, I would say, even just check out some of the songs. Like it's not mind-blowing, but it's just good, like good pumping background music. It's cool.
People don't talk about that game enough.
Yeah, that's
good.
Yeah, definitely put that on your list.
Yeah.
And it goes on sale, I think, relatively frequently, so keep your eye. There's like 300 games on sale on the eShop right now, so
yeah.
Keep your eyes on that.
Seriously.
All right, so we'll just jump into this here. One of the things that we've been talking about doing on a at least monthly basis, maybe a little bit more frequently than that, depending on the length of the game. Although with this game that we decided, maybe it'll be a little closer to a month.
Yeah, let's hope so.
We'll see. I know there's a little bit, at least at the pace that I play games.
For my sake too.
Yeah. Sounds like we've all had a couple busy weeks here. So
yeah.
But I know DJ has played some Hollow Knight a little bit.
Sure did.
And and Randall and I have both not touched it at all.
Nope, I own it, but I have not touched it.
Same here. I have it on my Switch and
sinners.
Yeah.
And but this one's been on my list for a long time. I mean, it's been on a lot of people's lists, and it seemed like it. I knew about it for a long time, but it seemed like when it came out on the Switch, it really got a bump, and like everybody was like, "This is the greatest game I've ever played."
Oh yeah,
like people were just going nuts. It was like, man, I knew about this game, but like I never heard it was that great. So, but yeah, this one's been on my list, and I think when they put that last of the free like update patches that they had, it was on sale for $10 on the Switch, and that was just at whatever time I bought it at.
Void Heart Edition, I think was.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Sounds right.
It comes with all the DLC,
Yeah. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, well, no brainer. Number one, I'm always going to endorse somebody being like, hey, we're adding a bunch of free stuff to our game and we're putting it on sale at the same time. Like, I'm always going to get behind that. And for $10, and like from what it sounds like, this game can last you, up to like 50 plus hours. Not that it, it's all about breaking down the dollars to hours ratio, but if the game's fun front to back and I can get that much, value out of the game, that sounds pretty great to me. So
heck yeah.
That's something I'm personally looking forward to diving into. I know Randall, we talked about it a little bit, but I'm guessing you're excited to dive in a little bit as well.
Another 2D side-scrolling based gameplay. I mean, that's all that needs to be said. Like, I'm always down. And yeah, all of the hype I've heard around this game, and all the comparisons to Dark Souls, like we talked about earlier. Like, there's more than enough reasons to be excited about jumping into this finally. So
yeah, I'll
I'm
be
down.
curious. I'll be curious what you think of the comparison people are making, because they're very different games.
Yeah.
And to me, the two biggest similarities are just the level of difficulty and the just the atmosphere, like kind of the world that's being built.
Okay.
That you've been thrust into. There's like just a similar dystopian, everything's a little uneasy kind of vibe.
Okay. So wait, you're saying these are similarities or differences?
Similarities.
Okay, I thought for some reason I misheard that. I thought you were saying there were differences.
Well, if you'd open your ears.
And I even took one of the headphones off one of my ears. I tried to open them up as much as I could.
Oh god.
But no such luck.
Got that pretty 2D art too. Oh,
yeah, really. At first glance, it almost looks a little bit like Flash animation or something. But then once you see how like fluid everything is, and
yeah.
It really, like, it looked a little drab at first to me, or a little bland, but then, I saw a little bit more. I think I saw either DJ or my buddy John, saw somebody playing it in action a little bit, and was just like, yeah, this looks pretty compelling. I'm sold on checking this out. So DJ's been prodding at me for a little while to get started on this, so I figure, what the hell, if we're starting up a video game podcast, got to play some more video games, so
let's do it.
Let's dive in. I'm curious to hear more of DJ's thoughts on the game when we talk about it. Probably in a few weeks we'll touch in, but if there's any notable things that come up in the process of playing the game in the meantime, we don't necessarily have to finish it before we talk about it or anything like that.
Let's hope so.
If anything comes up in the meantime that like really feels worth talking about even in the next week or so, we'll bring it up, but if not, we'll just talk about it later. I guess.
Sweet.
All right, I'm at a loss for words here a little bit. How are you guys both feeling?
I think we might be good.
Clearly, also lost for words.
Yeah, I'm also feeling pretty tired here. I think I mentioned this maybe in the last episode, but I'm in the process of recovering from hernia surgery here and having a bit of an off day here today. So apologies for maybe the low or awkward energy today, but
yeah, we talked some good games.
Yeah, I can edit it out and make it sound a little smoother here. So anyways, unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about or add, I think we can feel pretty good to call it about there.
Let's call it.
Sounds good.
Cool, let's call it a wash. Anyways, thanks for listening. My name's Kevin.
I'm DJ.
I'm Randall.
And this has been Pursuing Pixels. Thanks for listening and have a good night. Take care.
Night.
Do we want to number the episodes at the beginning? Do we want to say what number they are?
Yes.
We do? Okay, cool. I'll try to keep track of that and remember. So yeah, this is episode 2 of Pursuing Pixels. This last week we talked about a bunch of different stuff. Mostly, God, we're definitely cutting this out.
I almost want to also take back my yo.
Let's start it over. Restart the clock.
Reintroduce me.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is...
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Yeah, let's just start over.